He said, no, go ahead. I said, I believe I can do it better than you. Okay, so I got to tell him the story about the orphanage and stuff.
Yeah.
And I can do what I want. Old as I am, who cares? So I mean, I got to tell him the story. He was sitting on front row. He just cried.
Yeah.
He cried. He said, "I'm telling you, I'll never tell it again. You can have that story from now on."
He just signed it over to you.
He just cried.
I got it.
He said, "I've never heard it so beautiful." Well, I tell a lot of stuff because I can.
Right.
I just figure I can. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I talk about stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I enjoy my life and I enjoy people.
Oh.
I think it's important, don't you?
Well, somebody asked me one time, how do you love a God you can't see?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, that's easy. You love his children that you can.
Exactly.
Good, bad, no matter what, everybody is created by God.
Yeah.
And he had their mindset. And so the way I love God is loving people. And loving people that's the best thing you'll ever do.
Amen.
I mean, there's nothing like it,
Yeah.
And no, you don't always get love back.
Right.
But that's not love, right?
Exactly.
Love, that kind of love is not what you get in return. It's just what keeps flowing out of you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I studied one time, and I've shared this before, for a whole year on nothing but God the Father.
Yeah.
And I found this: if I want to get on your good side, first thing I do is brag on your children.
Right.
And if you want to find favor with me, if you start talking about my kids, you say, "Man, I seen this and that." Well, all of a sudden, I think, "Man, that Lawrence is something else." Okay.
Yeah.
I really like him.
Yeah.
So I began to think about that. Now, if we're like that as rotten as we are,
Right.
imagine how God is, how He looks at us. And if we don't tell Him everything wrong with His children,
Right.
but if we begin to tell Him how good they are and how I think there's so much in there. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And you said it exactly right. When people talk about our kids, we don't even have to know them. We made an instant connection.
Yes, sir.
And when we do that to the Father, and like you said, a lot of people's prayers are bashing people, like I want to be there when they get hit with life. You know what I'm saying? And that's not what it is.
Yes, sir.
It's like, God, you created everybody so special that everybody has a different fingerprint. So my expectation is never for anybody to be like me or what I want them to be.
Right.
I want them to be what God called them to be.
Yes, sir.
And that's what I love about them.
Yeah.
And that's what's real about them. A lot of people think that they're loved because of what they do. I was thinking about the Father on the prodigal son. We don't talk about him a lot. We just talk about he's good.
Right.
But somebody had to keep feeding the cow that one day would be the feast.
Yeah.
And he had to do it brokenhearted.
Right.
When your son says he don't want nothing to do with you and you're as good as dead.
Yeah.
A lot of fathers at that point just give up. My boys hurt me. That would be a pain I don't want to know what it is.
Sir.
But he kept taking care of everything, which means I want him to have something to come back to. If he would have just quit with his life because of that hurt,
right.
And that's us too with the church.
Yeah.
We just keep it at a place where it's always something you can come back to.
Yeah.
You don't want nobody to feel like they can't come back.
Right.
And so that kind of love is what's amazing.
I'm one time we distributed a lot of food, Janice and I did, in our lifetime, over 3 million pounds one year.
Oh yeah.
And people would cuss us sometimes because we didn't have what they wanted, okay?
Yeah.
And it was free.
Right.
But they would cuss us and say, I'll tell you what I want. And so I just go on. After a little while, it didn't really bother me. And one time the Lord spoke to me so plain. He said, "Son, thank you for being good to the ravens, because anybody could be kind to the doves."
That's
and
exactly
it really
right.
struck me. He said, because those ravens are somebody's children.
That's exactly right.
And I think that helps us.
And I think when you look at people in general with life, I promise you, when they were cussing you over the food wasn't the problem.
Right.
They've either had so much disappointment, so much hurt, so much abuse,
Yes, sir.
that their only outlet is, I didn't get what I want in food.
Yeah.
Because they can't fix the abuse or the hurt.
Right.
And so when you love God, you learn not to take it so personal. And it's hard to do because we're flesh.
Right.
But when you go, there's a bigger problem than us not having Pringles this time.
Right. Absolutely.
Even though that's what they're saying, down deep there's a pain that they've not dealt with.
Something else going on.
Yeah. And so when you look at it that way, it gives you a little more compassion,
Because, people have bad days.
Sure.
Okay, we have bad days. We have things that happen. Now, important to try to control those days.
Right.
But I mean, we have bad days, and people go through things in their life. And
Right.
it's let's talk about this.
Okay.
Let's get back because we've done discussed too much stuff. All right. All right.
I got you.
All right. I'm gonna be in trouble.
Two preachers in the shed. That's just nothing but words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. When we talk about growing up, where'd you grow up at?
Grew up in Bishop, Virginia.
Okay.
Right on the line. Dad was a coal miner and also a pastor. And so I grew up in Bishop till I was about 6th grade.
Right.
Bishop coal mine shut down, so we got to move to Baptist Valley, next to Tazewell. And when you come from Bishop, you were George Jefferson right there. You moved on up. You know, we didn't have to cross Stony Ridge every time. Yeah. And so I thought it was the greatest thing because my siblings, most of them all had to go through their high school career living in Bishop.
Right.
And so to go out on a date, you had to cross the mountain twice, you know. Right. And so I was like, I'm a step ahead, you know, I'm closer to what's going on. So that's where I grew up. But at that time, when the coal mines and everything was going, I'm telling you, it was the greatest community. Right. I mean, wherever you wrecked your bike, that's who your mom was. They just took care of everybody. A lot of simple times back then. Yeah.
And I think that, you know, when you think about growing up, then what kind of memories, what stands out in your mind when you think about memories that were just, now, you know, good things or things that you went through? What are some things, because there's always things that stand out.
Gosh, there's so many. You're right. There's so many because I guess the biggest thing that stands out to me is the front porch. At night, all of us would sit, the younger kids, me and the kids in the night were catching, you know, lightning bugs, and my brother Ray is playing the guitar, and my mom's just rocking in her chair, and Dad's just listening to it all, playing the car game. I don't know if you ever did that, where everybody picks a color, and whatever color car passes by, you say, I got one, and the first to 10 won. You know, that kind of stuff was just, I wouldn't take money for that, you know. Because at that point, and I had a guy ask me one time, said, when you want to go back to a place that's peaceful, what do you see? And I described that same moment. Because at that time, it was just peace. You know, there was no frustration. There was no keeping up with the Joneses. There was just us on the front porch, you know. So that's one of them. There's a lot about Bishop that I remember.
All right, what are we talking about? I mean, do you have any brothers and sisters?